Line number 2. Gary, is that you? Good morning, my friend.
Hey, yeah, this is Gary Pihl from the band Boston.
Hey, man, how you doing? Good morning. Thanks for calling, man. I hope we didn't get you out of bed. It's 10 o'clock Central Time here. What time is it where you're calling from, Gary?
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock here. I'm back in Boston at the moment.
All right. I'm glad to hear that because sometimes we get musicians at odd hours, and, well, I know what being a musician is like. I don't know if you heard me say that, but I'm one myself, Gary. So,
yes.
As a matter of fact, I've got to tell you, this is kind of odd because this is an AM radio station. Welcome to WJOB, by the way. And this is, I'm one of about 5 musicians that has their own program here. And believe it or not, Gary, we play music. No politics, no arguing. Are you ready for that?
That sounds terrific.
Are you sitting down for that? Yeah, today, WJOB, well, it does not mean wonderful job of broadcasting. It means we're jamming out Boston, Gary. That's what it means. I must introduce you to a good many of our listeners who may not be familiar with you. I am certainly familiar with you in Boston and a number of other bands that you've been in through the years. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, this young man is a veteran of many top rock and roll bands, currently with the rock and roll band Boston, but Gary Pihl has worked at his home recording studio with founding members of Night Ranger. How about these bands? Alliance, Day Blindness, Crossfire. You remember that one, folks. Stark Raving Mad, and by the way, Sammy Hagar and a number of other groups. That is absolutely fantastic. Gary, welcome to WJOB Radio, my friend. Gary Pihl.
Well, thanks.
How about that? There you go. There's our audience, Gary. There's our audience for you, my friend, a fake audience as well. But you guys are coming to Hammond on August 2nd, Thursday, at the venue. Is that the first time you've ever played the venue, Gary?
I believe it is, yes.
And you'll be very glad to know that there are throngs of Boston fans down here. And you'll also be glad to know that the venue, Music Theater, is located right next to the Horseshoe Casino. We're talking partay there, Gary. Party time there, Daddy-O. Indeed. Gary, let me ask you, were you self-taught as a musician, as a guitar player, or actually where did it start? Because I know you're a keyboard player as well. What came first, guitar or keyboards?
Well, to tell you the truth, I took piano lessons first.
Okay.
But, of course, I always wanted to play guitar. So when I was about 10, my dad finally bought me a cheap acoustic guitar, and I've been playing ever since. But I don't know if it was in the information there, but I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. So
yes, as a matter of fact, yes. And was north or south suburbs, Gary?
Well, both actually. First, Mount Prospect, northwest, and then we lived in Park Forest for a little while. That's just a short ways away from Hammond, anyway.
It is. I worked in Park Forest for about 30 years, as a matter of fact. It's great to have a region guy on the phone with me, Gary. Yeah, 10-4. So keyboard was your first instrument? Yes,
we had a piano at home, and my older sister had taken piano lessons, and it looked interesting to me. So I said, I want to take piano lessons too. Well, so I did that for a short time, and then I said, I really would rather play guitar. And so, as I say, my dad bought me a guitar. And then I moved to California when I was about 12 and, started playing in local bands there, just buddies from junior high and all that. And when I was in high school, one of the guys in the band said, hey, there's a great guitar teacher here at a local music store. He's, a little older than us, of course. We should take some lessons because he's really good. So we went down and took some lessons from him, and he was in a band called the Warlocks, and we went to go see them when they played a pizza parlor.
That sounds familiar.
And about 6 months later, they changed the name of the band from the Warlocks to the Grateful Dead.
There it is, yeah.
So it was Jerry Garcia that was giving us lessons.
Fantastic. Gary, you mentioned the first acoustic guitar. What brand was it? I'm really curious.
Yeah, Stella.
Stella, okay, the Harmony Stella. As a matter of fact, a good many times we're very surprised to see as guitar players the cheap, American-made and Japanese-made guitars that we bought in the 1960s are now, some of them are considered collector's items, Gary, right?
Absolutely. I've got a story about that if you have a moment.
Sure, I got a lot of moments. Sure, go ahead, man.
So, I had some cheap guitars growing up. And then when my son got to be about 10 years old, he said, gee, I'd like to play guitar. And so, of course, I've got some nice guitars now, but I said, instead of letting him use one of my good ones, I want to get him a cheap guitar so that he struggles like I did growing up. You know? And I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and out of the blue, this guy sent me a cheap guitar from the 60s, a Kent guitar. So anyway, so my son played that for a little while and was not impressed and finally bought, his own guitar.
Yeah.
But so we kept the Kent in the basement, and then just a few years ago, one of the crew guys that I had, one of my guitar techs, emailed me and said, "Gee, I'm looking for a Kent guitar. You don't happen to have one, do you?" I said, "Oh, my God, I do." And I told him the story. He said, "Yeah, a friend just sent this to us, And they said, "Well, because I'm working with a guy right now who that was his first guitar. His mom bought it for him for Christmas. It was $69.95,
Sure.
and he's looking for one. We're looking at eBay and everywhere. We can't find one. If you've got one, how many pickups does he have? One. Oh, yeah, that's what he wants. And how, is it Sunburst? Yeah. He said, "Well, that's the one. That's the one he wants." And I said, "Well, fantastic." And so the guy says, "Well, how much do you want to sell it for? Because this guy will pay anything."
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Well, shoot." So I called my son, and I said, so Kevin, my guitar tech, is working with somebody else. I'm not sure who, but the guy wants the guitar because it was his first guitar. And so my son said, "Well, we didn't pay anything for it, so yeah, go ahead, pass it on. We don't want to charge the guy any money."
Yeah.
So I called Kevin. I said, "Yeah, Kevin, we'll just give it to you. By the way, who's this for?" He says, "Well, right now I'm working for Bruce Springsteen. This is Bruce's first guitar, So we sent it to him, and of course Bruce was thrilled. He took a picture of him playing it and sent my son a thank you note. And then when they came through town, he got to meet him and stuff. And today, that guitar is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'll be darned. That is fantastic. I'll tell you, a lot of those cheap guitarists nowadays, people like, my goodness, David Bromberg and Dave Van Ronk, all these guys play all the other Teisco Del Reys from the 1960s. All of a sudden, they're popular, right, Gary? People want them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes, indeed. How about your current favorite guitar players? Who do you find yourself listening to time and time again, Gary? The current wave of, shall I say, new guitar players.
Oh, everybody. From Dave Navarro to Orianthi, Michael Angerfeld from Opus. I mean, all those guys. I mean, just everybody's so unique these days. Of course, John Mayer, is terrific, and then the classic guys are still at it. I mean, Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton. So it really transcends all ages. Again, I just love listening to anybody play guitar.
Yeah, 10-4. And of course, you just mentioned, listen, a quick question on that. Clapton, Beck, and Page, of course, three names that are thrown around quite frequently. Your favorite of those three, Gary? It's difficult to pick, isn't it? But who do you listen to more?
It's funny that you say that because in my mind, they're different. I mean, you would think, well, gosh, I mean, they're all, very similar kind of guys. But to me, they're very unique. Clapton obviously leans a little more towards the blues.
Yes.
And in that style. And then Page, of course, took the blues to that electric blues, obviously the Led Zeppelin thing. And Beck is such a fantastic technician. I mean, the stuff that he can do on the guitar is just amazing. I don't even know how he's doing this stuff.
Yes, indeed.
The harmonics and all that.
It's great. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Unique.
Yes, it's great to watch Jeff Beck and, of course, guitar player. Jeff Beck often pushes the envelope of innovator. Would you not agree, Gary?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so I think that's why he's probably had the least amount of commercial success, because he is so far out in front with, really outside kind of stuff.
Absolutely.